Peace and blessings, brothers and sisters. A word of revelation. The Spirit kept putting the book of Job on my mind, and it wasn't just about the sufferings of Job himself, but even something that is written about his wife. One of the things that the Spirit brought to my attention in the book of the Sefer, when you go to chapter 2, verse 9, Job's wife tells him to bless God and die. Bless God and die. But when you read the KJVs and the other translations, they all say that she said, curse God and die. So this stood out to me tremendously because it changed my entire viewpoint of Job's wife. One of the things I had always thought about is, how's this man, when you read chapter 1, there was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job. And that man was perfect and upright, and one that feared Elohim and eschewed evil. And there were born unto him 7 sons and 3 daughters. His substance also was 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camel, 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 she-asses, and a very great household, so that this man was the greatest of all the men of the east. Now, when it speaks of his sons went and feasted in their house every one his day, and sent and called for their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. And it was so, when the days of their feasting were gone about, that Job sent and sanctified them, and rose up early in the morning and offered burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, it may be that his sons have sinned and cursed Elohim in their hearts. Thus did Job continually. So Job offered up burnt offerings for his sons in fear that they may have cursed Elohim in their hearts. He did this continually. Now, as we read throughout the story, we know that the sons of Yahuwah came to present themselves, as did Satan, unto God. And Yahuwah speaks about Job. I'm going to go over to chapter 2. This is after his sons and daughters have died. All his oxen, sheep have died and been stolen. His servants have been killed, and his loss is great. He did not just lose his 10 children. All the servants, I'm sure that he grew close to over the years, many of whom I'm sure he grew to love, they are gone as well. And only one servant amongst them would escape to tell Job. Now, as we begin in chapter 2, we see, again, there was a day when the sons of Elohim came to present themselves unto Yahuwah. And Satan came also among them to present himself before Yahuwah. And Yahuwah said unto Satan, from whence come you? And Satan answered Yahuwah and said, from going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. And Yahuwah said unto Satan, have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that fears Elohim and eschews evil, and still he holds fast his integrity, although you move me against him to destroy him without cause. And Satan answered and said, skin for skin, yea, all that a man has he will give for his life. But put forth your hand now and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse you to your face. And Yahuwah said unto Satan, behold, he is in your hand, but save his life. So Satan went forth from the presence of Yahuwah and smote Job with sore boils from the sole of his foot unto the crown of his head. And he put a potsherd to scrape himself withal, and he sat down among the ashes. This is Job. Now, this is what his wife says to him. It's very similar to what the KJV says up to a point. Then said his woman unto him, do you still retain your integrity? Bless Elohim and die. In the Sefer, she says, bless Elohim and die, not curse Elohim and die. Job responds to her. He said unto her, you speak as one of the foolish women speak. What, shall we receive good at the hand of Elohim, and shall we not receive evil? In all this did not Job sin with his lips. When you read the KJV and the other translations, it leads you to believe that his wife tried to get him to curse God and die. But she said, bless God and die. She knew his suffering. She was part of his suffering. This was one of the things I always wrestled with. I wrestled with it because here is a man whose name was Job. He was perfect and upright and one that feared Elohim and eschewed evil. So much so that Yahuwah took notice of him. He's talking about him among the sons of God as well as to Satan. Okay? And yet he's got this wife so foolish that she would tell him to curse God, knowing that he burns offerings. He gives up burnt offerings every day for fear that his own sons curse God in his heart. A holy man. This man is holy. He's got Yahuwah's attentions in the eternal realm. So much so Yahuwah is talking about him to Satan. And yet his wife, who has been around this holy man all these years, tells him to curse God and die? No. Once you read the Sefer, you get a greater understanding. She's saying, bless God and die. His suffering so great, her suffering so great. In the midst of that depression, let go of your will to live and give up the ghost. But he tells her, you speak as one of the foolish women speaks, which also lets you know that's not her normal manner of speaking. In these translations, Barak means either curse or bless. And from being led to believe that his wife told him to curse God, it makes a person turn against his wife in a very negative way. It also makes you question Job's judgment. But what you realize is, not only did she not tell him not to curse God, she said, bless God. Just like when a person is getting ready to end their life or give up, many people will contact people they love. They will speak to them and they will tell them how much they love them. Thank you for all the goodness that you've done. They don't necessarily tell them what their plans are, but they try to give honor and homage to people that they care about before they give up the will to live. And I don't think his wife told him to commit suicide. It's like, stop fighting it. Stop fighting it. She too was in the midst of a depression. Also, one of the things I want to point out, when you get to verse 3, Yahuwah said unto Satan, have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that fears Elohim and eschews evil, and still he holds fast his integrity. This is Yahuwah speaking in the eternal realm. Now, when we take away the curse God out of the mouth of Job's wife, we get to see not only is she honoring God, she's not dishonoring God. She's actually speaking in the prophetic. How do we know? When you go to chapter 2, verse 9, she says, then said his woman unto him, do you still retain your integrity? Where did we hear that? From God. Where did we hear that? Those are the exact words Yahuwah is saying in the eternal realm. When we hear her say, bless God and die, she too has lost 10 children. She too has lost all those servants. And no, she is not speaking correctly, but it gives you a greater understanding. It got to the point I thought the woman actually died herself. I did. I thought this is the most evil, foolish, negative speaking woman to say curse Yahuwah and die, that I didn't really have much feeling for her until the Spirit opened my eyes to the fact. Look at what she says first. Do you still retain your integrity? Who said Job had integrity and he retained it? Yahuwah is saying it in the heavenly realm. His wife is saying it in the earthly realm. Now, when she tells him, bless Yahuwah and die, because that's what is written in the Sefer, why isn't that translation in the KJV? And whoever else continued to translate it just chose to leave it, because we know a lot of the people who translated it were not honoring the true writings. And because it was a female, they disregarded it. But it changes your view on his wife, the type of person he picked, the effect he must have had on her. Even an ignorant person around a wise person grows wiser. Even an ignorant person, if they dwell amongst a wise person, they normally grow wiser. Okay, here's Job. He's perfect. He eschews evil. We know it affected her. We know she had some type of prophetic eye by what she says. We also know she did not die. We also know she did not die. It changes how you understand the word and what is written. I am not trying to negate Job. I am just pointing out something that stood out to me. She did not tell him to curse God and die. As a matter of fact, when Job is talking about his wife, we see later on in the book of Job, chapter 30, starting at the 9th verse, he's speaking to his different friends. He said, if my heart has been deceived by a woman, or if I have laid in wait at my neighbor's door, then let my wife grind unto another, and let others bow down upon her. So we know she's still alive. We know that. Even though we get to the end of the book and we see that other sons and daughters are born unto him, his wife is still with him because she never told him to curse God. She told him, bless God and die. I think in the madness of her own grief, she was so overcome. We do know that the scripture says, even a wise man under oppression acts crazy. Even a wise person under oppression acts crazy. She's been under that same grief. The number one thing that I wanted to point out is how deceptive the change of a word can be. Now, we see, like I said, chapter 1 of Job, going into the 5th verse, that Job offered up burnt offerings according to the number of his sons. For he said, it may be that my sons have sinned and cursed Elohim in their hearts. Thus he did continually. So if his wife had dwelt with him, she knew that was something he would never do. That's that line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little. It supports itself. We also know she understood his integrity because she speaks about it to him. Chapter 2, verse 9. Then said his woman unto him, do you still retain your integrity? Bless Elohim and die, because this thing is so terrible she had given up, which we should not do. Job's response, but he said unto her, you speak as one of the foolish women speaks, which means that was not a manner that she normally spoke in. He said, you sound like one of them foolish people. That's not normal for her. How do we know that? Because when she said to him in verse 9, do you still retain your integrity? Do you still retain your integrity? We know those are the exact words that Yahuwah said in the eternal realm. Verse 3, and still he holds fast his integrity. She's actually prophesying. She's speaking it from the eternal into the earth, into the physical realm. I'm not justifying that scene, brothers and sisters. I'm just expounding upon it. That when people are under great levels of grief, although the test was Job's, his wife also lost 10 children. She may have been ready to give up hope and was telling him to do the same, especially since he's covered in boils. They lost everything. Grief can make you crazy. Grief can make you sound crazy. That's why he said to her, that is why he said to her, chapter 2, verse 10, you speak as one of the foolish women speaks, which means that wasn't normal. Shall we receive good at the hands of Elohim, and shall we not receive evil? In all this, did not Job sin with his lips? I had to point this out because, again, throughout my growing up years, all I've ever read is that she told him to curse God and die. I never even recognized that what she said in the 9th verse, do you still retain your integrity, was the exact thing in the eternal realm that Elohim was saying. and still he holds fast his integrity. So